we trust in you, Jesus. You're all, you're all, you're all that we need. Your power will pull us through. We're trusting in you, we're trusting in you. You give us hope and life that's forever. You make us bold and we stand together. Your power will pull us through. We're trusting in you, we're trusting in you. We're off on this journey, there's no looking back. With Jesus to lead us, we're on the right track. Oh, 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 oh. Wide open spaces for wide open eyes. We're looking ahead for the next big surprise. Oh, 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 oh. We trust, we trust, we trust in you, Jesus. You're all, you're all, you're all that we need. Your power will pull us through. We're trusting in you, we're trusting in you. You give us hope and life that's forever. You make us bold and we stand together. Your power will pull us through. We're trusting in you, we're trusting in you. We're off on this journey, there's no looking back. With Jesus to lead us, we're on the right track. Oh, 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 oh. Wide open spaces for wide open eyes. We're looking ahead for the next big surprise. Oh, 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 oh. We trust, we trust, we trust in you, Jesus. You're all that we need. Your power will pull us through. We're trusting in you, we're trusting in you. You give us hope and life that's forever. And we stand together. Your power will pull us through. We're trusting in you, trusting in you. Your power will pull us through. We're trusting in you, trusting in you, trusting in you. We're trusting in you, trusting in you. Come on now, join with me, everybody sing. I'm gonna lift my voice to glorify my King. He is a mighty God and worthy of our praise. We give him everything, he's good in every way. Come on now, join with me, everybody sing. I'm gonna lift my voice to glorify my King. He is a mighty God and worthy of our praise. We give him everything, he's good in every way.
He is always there for us.
He's good in every way.
Pouring out his awesome love.
He's good in every way.
He fills us up with peace and joy.
He's good in every way.
He gives us all we need and more.
He's good in every way.
Come on now, join,
Come on now, join with me, everybody sing. I'm gonna lift my voice to glorify my King. He is a mighty God and worthy of our praise. We give him everything, he's good in every way.
He is always there for us.
He's good in every way.
Pouring out his awesome love.
He's good in every way.
He fills us up with peace and joy.
He's good in every way.
He gives us all we need and more.
He's good in every way.
Come on now, join with
Come
me.
on now, join with me, everybody sing. I'm gonna lift my voice to glorify my King. He is a mighty God and worthy of our praise. We give him everything, he's good in every way. Come on now, join with me, everybody sing.
Everybody sing.
I'm gonna
my King. He is a mighty God and worthy of our praise. We give him everything. He's good in every way. He's good in every way. He's good in every way.
Hello, all you cool cats and kittens. It has been quite a while since we have seen each other. And just in case you forgot who I am Miss Cheryl, and I'm so excited to share our Bible lesson with you this week. To get us started, I have a question for you. How many of you have read the Bible before? I hope you raised your hand or said, me. One of the reasons I started reading the Bible is because I had questions about God. I wanted to know more about who God is and what he's like. All of the Bible stories we will hear have something to do with our big picture question. This question helps us see the bigger picture of what God is up to. As you listen to the Bible story I want to share with you today, think about this question. What is God like? I'll talk about some ideas, and you can talk with your family about some answers after the story. If you've ever spent time reading the Bible, or if you remember from our time before, you probably know that the Bible is made up of a bunch of different stories. All the stories in the Bible fit together to tell us one big story. The Bible tells us the story of how God rescues sinners, us, through his son Jesus. The Bible starts at the beginning, literally. The beginning of time when God created everything. It tells us how sin entered the world through Adam and Eve. and how God began working out his plan to send a rescuer. He chose a group of people, the family of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to be his people through whom the rescuer would come. The Old Testament tells us about these people, the nation of Israel. God called Moses to deliver his people from captivity in Egypt. So Moses did this. The people left Egypt and miraculously escaped from Pharaoh and his army by crossing the Red Sea. And that's where our story picks up today, in the wilderness where God's people were wandering toward the promised land, the land that God had promised to give them. It's been a while since we've been together, but I hope you'll remember some of the things that we've learned about the Bible so far. While the Bible is one big book, it is separated into two sections, the Old Testament and the New Testament. So far, our lessons have been from the Old Testament. Do you remember what the first book of the Bible is? If you said Genesis, you're right. Genesis means beginning. Exodus, where we'll be at today, is the second book of the Bible. If you think about what that word sounds like, you might be able to figure out what it means. Exodus sounds like exit. It gets its name from a major event that is in the first half of the book, the Israelites' departure or exit from Egypt. You can find today's story in Exodus in chapters 15 through 17. Let's watch our Bible story video and see what happened.
Moses led God's people away from the Red Sea, and they came to the wilderness. They could not find good water to drink in. They complained to Moses. God said, "If you obey me and do what is right and keep my commands, I will not punish you like I punished the Egyptians. I am the Lord who heals you."
The Israelites came to a place called Elim, where they found plenty of food and water. They camped there. The Israelites left Elim and journeyed into the wilderness. They were hungry. They complained to Moses, "We wish we had died in Egypt. At least there was food to eat," they said. "You brought us out here to starve to death." But Moses had not brought them out there to die. God knew what he was doing.
God said, "I have heard the complaints of the Israelites. Tell them, in the evening you will eat meat, and in the morning you will eat bread until you are full. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God." So at evening, quail came into the camp. In the morning, fine flakes like frost were on the ground. "What is it?" the Israelites asked. Moses said, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat."
The Israelites called the bread manna, which means, "What is it?" God gave the people instructions. He told them to collect just enough to eat for the day. If they collected too much, the leftovers went bad. He told them to collect twice as much on the 6th day because the 7th day was the Sabbath, a day to rest. The Israelites did not always follow God's instructions. Sometimes they collected too much manna, and sometimes they tried to collect manna on the Sabbath day.
Moses was angry that the people refused to obey God. The Israelites ate manna for 40 years while they were in the wilderness. The Israelites moved about the wilderness as the Lord told them to do. One day, they came to a camp with no water. "Give us something to drink," they told Moses. "Why are you complaining to me?" Moses asked. "You brought us out here to die," the Israelites said. They forgot that the Lord had a plan for them. "Lord, what should I do?" Moses cried out. God showed Moses a rock and instructed him to hit it with his staff. Water came out of it and the people drank. It was a sign that the Lord was with them.
In the New Testament, Jesus said that he is the bread of life. God provided manna from heaven for his people's physical hunger, and later he provided his son, Jesus, for our spiritual hunger. The Israelites needed bread to live for a little while, but whoever has Jesus will live forever.
That is incredible. Wow, God's people had just escaped from Egypt in a mass exodus, when a lot of people leave all at the same time, and one of the first things they did was start complaining. I mean, I probably would have done the same thing. It's hard to go for very long without food and water, especially if you're doing a lot of walking. The people thought Moses had brought them into the wilderness to die. Of course, we can see the bigger picture of what was happening because we have the whole Bible to read. We know that God had a plan, and God provided for the physical needs of his people by sending quail and manna. He also provided water to drink. God heard the complaints of his people, and he cared about them. The story really helps us to answer our big picture question. What is God like? God is holy, good, and loving. No one is like God. He cares for us and always does what is right. In the New Testament, Jesus said he is the bread of life. God provided manna from heaven for his people's physical hunger, and later he provided his son Jesus for our spiritual hunger. The Israelites needed bread to live for a little while, but whoever has Jesus will live forever. Let's take a look at our questions from kids video with Pastor Brian.
Hey there, I'm Pastor Brian, and it's time for Questions from Kids. Ruby from Morgantown, West Virginia asks,
if my parents make a decision I don't like, is it wrong to complain about it?
Thanks for asking that question, Ruby. It's a good question. You know, it's hard when we live under somebody else's authority, like a parent, and have to do what they tell us, especially when we don't agree with what they're telling us to do or we don't like it. And to me, it reminds me of the Bible story this week that we saw the children of Israel that God had freed from slavery in Egypt. He had provided for them in so many amazing ways. And yet, soon after they're freed, they start complaining because they were hungry. And really, what's at stake here is that they failed to trust God. They failed to see how he had been so good to them before and trust that he would continue to be good to them. So instead of complaining, they should have said, God, we trust you. We know you want what's best for us, and therefore we will trust in you. And that's what God wants from us with our parents and other adults who lead over us. He wants us to trust them because we trust him, the one who gave them to us. So instead of grumbling and complaining that says, I don't know if I can trust you, I don't know if I agree with you, God wants us just to trust them and honor them as our leaders that he has put over us. How can you show your parents that you trust them and honor them even when they make decisions you don't like?
I think the best way to answer this question is to think about today's Bible story. If you were in the wilderness and someone provided you with what you needed to live, would you ignore him or speak badly of him? Of course not. When we believe the good news that Jesus died to rescue sinners, our reaction should be love. In a similar way, our parents love and provide for us and want what is best for us. And we should do our best to respond with love and not complain, even when we don't agree. I know that can be hard, but I think our key passage might be able to help. Our key passage for this unit comes from the book of Matthew in the New Testament in chapter 22, verse 37 through 39. It says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and most important command. The second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. If we are able to remember this, it can help us not be complainers like the Israelites, but instead to love God, our families, and everyone we meet. Let's work on memorizing these words that God has given us over the next few weeks. Well, that's all our time for now. I hope you've enjoyed our time together, and I want you to know that while we are apart, I'm praying for you, and I can't wait for the time that we can all be together again. I hope you'll join me next week to learn about where God led Moses and the Israelites next.